Well, hello and welcome back to Barcelona. We're speaking at the end of the first day of the second 2020 pre-season Formula 1 test. I'm Alex Canlorcas. I'm here with motorsport.com F1 editor Jonathan Noble and Autosport's F1 reporter Luke Smith. Well, another interesting day at Barcelona, a bit of a cagey one that we're going to get onto later on. Times topped by Robert Kubica, Alfa Romeo's test driver this morning. He did a 1:16.942, set on the softest C5 tyres, quickest in the morning, stayed throughout the afternoon. So it was quite a cagey day, as I said there. I don't think we learnt a lot. Not many people showed their hand. I think quite a bit of not necessarily super long running. Renault did look to do a race run, but everybody else was in and out of the pits. Quite a lot of stop-start stuff happening. John, you and I went during the afternoon. We went down to a press conference with Ferrari. Matteo Binotto and Sebastian Vettel were speaking there. Again, they weren't seem to be keen to be giving too much away. But what do you think we learned from that session?
I think we learned the car's quicker in the corners and isn't as quick on a straight line. It was something we saw last week. There's the Mercedes suggestions that the Ferrari engine was turned down a bit compared to the customer teams. Asked Mattia, was that true? He said no.
It's pretty emphatic, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was quite. But I think they understand that this car's made improvements where they hope, which is in the corners, which helps lap time and with tyre degradation. It's an important element. But they're not quick enough to run a lap yet. So maybe they've gone too far. Maybe they've not wound the engine up. This week's a bit of shadow boxing in some regards. That teams want to know how quick they can go, but they don't want to give too much away. So I think we've started seeing some low fuel runs. Kubica, for example, obviously trying to find the limits of the car, and we'll see more as the week goes on. By the end of this week, we'll have the answers. We won't have them tonight.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned there what Binotto shutting down the question. Well, he answered the question, to be fair, but he shut down the Mercedes speculation that the power unit was turned down compared to their customers. Interestingly though, Ferrari's still not featuring too heavily in the speed trap. So he says they're not playing games, but you never really know, as you say at this point, John.
Yeah, I think the car has more drag. I mean, last season they admit they went the wrong way. The car was too quick in a straight line and not quick enough in the corners. They tried to balance it out later on in the year, made some progress in the corners. I think, again, it's the usual thing. We come out of testing, and so we have to wait for Melbourne. But I think, maybe we wait 2 races in, and if there's a consistent pattern, have Ferrari put too much downforce on, too much drag, and they need to kind of ease it off a bit for the first races. And
Sebastian Vettel alluded to very much a similar thing. He said it does sort of take like 2, 3, 4 races even to get a real picture of where things are going. And obviously with China's cancellation and some other uncertainty, I think it might be even longer until we get a real picture of where things are this season. So I think John summed it up perfectly when he said it's a bit of shadow boxing that could linger beyond pre-season even.
Absolutely. I mean, still no super low fuel runs or soft tyre runs from Ferrari, but they did say that they're finally started working on optimising their setup. So do you think perhaps tomorrow, maybe we might edge towards Friday before we really see a little something special from Ferrari? Yeah,
I think maybe tomorrow we'll start seeing something. They're on a new rear wing today, new engine cover, new bits coming. They said by the end of this test, they'll be in Melbourne spec. I think if you're a team, ideally, you want to get your closest you can to your Melbourne spec and then do your low fuel runs and your race sim. So you've got a bigger data package going into Melbourne. I think Mattia, admitted here today that they made a mistake last year. They got too carried away with how easy testing was going. Didn't do enough of understanding the car, understanding the setup, and that's what caught them out in Melbourne 12 months ago.
Absolutely. Now, who else do we think looked strong, Luke? Mercedes pounding around again. Red Bull got up there with Max Verstappen towards the end of the day, but then he had a spin right at the end. So what did you make of what else you saw on track today? Yeah,
I mean, Red Bull are sort of looking pretty solid, but I think, again, like Ferrari, we're still yet to see their full hand, really. Verstappen, P2 on the day, really, really good. Slight spin at the end, but I think he downplayed it in his post-session media briefing, which is fair play. And
as is his want.
And I think Red Bull can be sort of pretty quietly confident with how things are going so far. And Mercedes, again, I think it was just a very sort of like standard trouble-free day for them. They had a couple of engine issues last week, so I think to get away from some of that and have a smooth running was important for them. And I think just continue racking up the miles before the end of the week.
Red Bull did have a bit of a tough start to the day because Alex Albon went out, did an install lap, then didn't appear again for 3 hours. And he said that was a suspension issue that they had to work on. So, okay, looked like they got it running and sealed and everything fine for the afternoon, but it's going to take a bit of a hit, especially when you only got 3 days. Well, 3 days are here, 6 days total at testing.
Yeah, definitely. And it's something that I think we've been sort of discussing with a few team principals and drivers this week about how much testing do you really need. And some of them have said you could scale it right back to 4 days total even. And others saying, no, we need more and more. And I think, days like today where Red Bull, they lose all that time in the morning, I think they're probably ruining the fact that we've only got 6 days this year, but hoping that we don't roll back any further because, it's a big lot of time to lose. And I think especially as we're getting closer and closer to, you need to open up the taps and show what the car can do. To have a setback like that on either Thursday or Friday could really be a big blow.
Absolutely, and John, it's interesting going back to that Ferrari session we were at with Binotto and Vettel, was that obviously Vettel had that engine problem on Friday afternoon. Binotto clarified that. He said, well, we've looked at it. It was an issue that we expected. We've seen it on the dyno. We've now implemented a fix, and that engine is back in the car. So Ferrari seemingly getting on top of what could have been a bit of a drama for them.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, testing is about finding problems. They had this problem. It was a big drama on the final day last week, and everyone thought, oh, Ferrari engine problems. But I think more interesting is Mercedes. We found out after the test last week that they had to change Bottas's engine. It had a failure on the second day last week, and I think Luke, you're at Williams today. They've had some problems as well, haven't they?
Yeah, they weren't bulletproof with Nicholas Latifi. He stopped on track in the morning, caused a red flag. So
yeah, he did. No worries, still no. It was so Latifi did have a big setback this morning when he stopped on track. It was their third engine issue that they've had so far through testing, and Claire Williams spoke about it this afternoon and said that it's a third issue. They're onto their third engine now as well, which is very, very high, obviously, for only 4 days of pre-season testing. And she was quite frustrated by it because ultimately Williams have had such a good start, and after I think banishing some of the demons of last year and how terrible that pre-season was. Yeah, and I think for Williams to come here with a car that's well built and appears to be all working very, very smoothly, to then be put off track by an issue that isn't of their own making. Obviously, Mercedes are their power unit supplier, and I think that's really, really frustrating for them. Williams said the only issue they've had so far was a sensor problem that cost them 30 minutes last week. Otherwise, though, it's all on Mercedes, who, as John said, had the issue with Bottas last week when he had an engine issue. So, I think Williams will be a little bit frustrated, but there's lots of confidence for them to take. After the issue this morning, George Russell got out on track and they were still able to rack up more than 100 laps, which is good. And I think it's really still a very good story that's coming out of that team so far in this winter.
And they're pleased with the car. Obviously, Claire Williams speaking now. I know George Russell was positively bouncing, as we said at this time last week. So what are their thoughts on how they've developed the new FW43?
Yeah, it all appears to be very positive, and I think they're not expecting everything to dramatically change overnight and all of a sudden be in the thick of the midfield fight. But I think they're definitely thinking they'll be a step closer this year, which is good for everybody. I mean, we don't want to see Williams sort of languishing at the back of the field as it was all the way through last year. I think it's a positive mood coming out of the team, which is really, really good.
Absolutely. Now, and speaking of someone else who's got, we're about to speak to someone else who's had a positive mood. John, you went and just spoke to Sergio Perez, who's enjoying his pink Mercedes, as some people have been referring to it as.
Yeah, I said last week that Sergio, there was a quiet confidence there. He wasn't saying much last week. He said, we've got to work through the car and understand it better and all that. But it's all the messages you get when your car's very, very good. I said to him just simply tonight, is this the best car you've had in your F1 career? He says, yes. Very bullish. Says the team's never been best prepared. There's suggestions that not only may they be ahead of the midfield, they could even be threatening the top three now if they can hit the ground running. But Sergio, continues to play things down. Says not how we start in Melbourne, it's how we finish in Abu Dhabi. But I think the Racing Point are going to cause a few surprises and maybe a few bit of controversy for the other teams.
I was going to say, just he's sort of ever stoking that controversy because Renault and McLaren, their technical chiefs were speaking at lunchtime, and a little bit of perhaps this isn't so good for Formula One. What's gone on with Racing Point and Mercedes? Yeah,
Marcin Budkowski, the executive director of Renault, asked him earlier on if there were any concerns about the legality. He didn't want to get too drawn into it, but said it was a concerning evolution for Formula One. So we'll see where it goes, whether there'll be any pushing of the FI for clarification. But I think you're right. I remember this when Haas came in with their Ferrari business model. The more successful they got, the more the opposition got revved up. So, Racing Point may be looking and hoping for podiums early on, but any podium for them is going to, I think, cause a bit of fallout elsewhere.
Excellent. Well, thank you, John. Thank you, Luke. Thank you for watching this video. We'll be back at Barcelona tomorrow. Hopefully it might not be quite so blustery as you've probably noticed with my ridiculous haircut. But do make sure you check out all our social media channels at Autosport and Motorsport.com. Have your say in the comments below on YouTube, and do remember to like our YouTube page. Thanks very much and see you tomorrow.